2:14 a.m. Your phone sits at 9%, plugged into an outlet that doesn't work, in the back corner of a laundromat that closed 40 minutes ago. You're the only person inside. The dryers are silent. The fluorescent tube over the folding table hums louder than it should at this hour, and somewhere behind the machines a pipe ticks as it cools. Across the street, a patrol car has been idling in the same spot for 6 minutes, not pulling away, not calling it in and moving on, just sitting there with its lights off, engine running, exhaust curling up into the streetlight. You count the exits without meaning to. Front door. The fire exit past the vending machine. A window over the folding table, painted shut since before you were born. 14 weeks ago, none of this existed. 14 weeks ago, the worst thing in your life was a court date you were sure you could push to another day. In about 90 seconds, you're going to find out whether that car is here for the sedan parked crooked 2 spaces down, or for you. This didn't start tonight, though. It started on an ordinary Tuesday, in a courtroom you never walked into. Level 1. Wanted defendant. 14 weeks earlier, you're sitting in your car across the street from the courthouse with the engine running and the AC doing nothing against the heat. Through the glass doors, you can see the line at the metal detector. People in slightly nicer clothes than yours, checking their phones, waiting to be let through. You tell yourself you'll go in on the next recess. Your hands don't feel like your hands right now, and walking and shaking feels worse than walking in 10 minutes late. 9 becomes 9:20. Somewhere inside, a bailiff calls a name that isn't yours yet, and you realize you're listening for yours anyway. Nobody comes looking for you. That's the part nobody warns you about, the absence of any signal that something just went wrong. No knock, no siren, just a clerk somewhere checking a box on a form and a judge who has already moved on to the next case. You drive to work like it's any other day. You text your friend Marcus that you'll explain later, and you mean it, and then you don't, because later turns out to be a place that's easy to keep pushing back. You don't think about that Tuesday again for 11 days. By the time you do, it isn't a missed appointment anymore. It's a bench warrant, sitting quietly in a county database, waiting for the next ordinary moment with a police officer to bring it back into your life. Level 2. Warrant Subject. A warrant doesn't do anything by itself. It just waits. For the first couple of weeks, that feels like good news. It's local. It's low priority. Whoever's handling actual emergencies at 2 a.m. isn't coming to your door over a missed court date nobody outside your county has heard of. You start doing the math that everyone in your position does. Thousands of names in that system, one of you. Then a patrol car sits behind you at a red light for 11 seconds too long, and your hands lock at 10 and 2 until it finally turns off. One evening, an officer runs your plate at a gas station, standing close enough that you can hear the radio clip on his shoulder crackle back a string of numbers you don't understand. He glances at you once, decides you're not worth the walkover, and goes back to his coffee. You sit in your car for 4 full minutes after he leaves before your hands stop shaking enough to drive. Then your mother mentions, trying to sound casual, that someone from the county called the house asking for you by your full name, the one on your birth certificate, not the one anyone actually calls you. Marcus laughs about it at first, the way you do about things that still feel far away. He tells you about a cousin of his who got picked up on a warrant 2 years old during a traffic stop 3 states from home. Nobody had been looking for him specifically. His name got typed in, and the warrant was simply there, waiting the way yours is waiting now. That's the night the math stops working for you. Staying starts to feel less like safety and more like sitting next to a phone you know is going to ring eventually. Level 3. Wanted person. You don't leave yet. First, you find out what a warrant does to the people standing closest to you, whether you meant for it to or not. Your sister calls, confused, holding a voicemail from a number she doesn't recognize. Someone official, not asking about her. Asking about you, where you work, who you see, when she last laid eyes on you in person. She tells you about it at her own kitchen table 3 nights later, in front of her kids, in a voice pitched low enough that they won't ask questions she doesn't have answers to yet. You didn't put her name in anyone's file. She's in it anyway. Your manager mentions, too lightly, that someone called to confirm your work schedule for last month. Nobody says why. Nobody has to. The question does the work on its own. Marcus starts answering his phone differently around you, a half-second delay before he picks up, like he's bracing for something. You notice. You don't ask, because asking means admitting there's something to brace for. You catch yourself rehearsing ordinary conversations before you have them, editing your own life in advance in case anyone repeats it back to a stranger later. None of this makes you dangerous. It makes you someone whose name now costs other people something, every time it comes up. That's the version of guilt nobody prepares you for, not what you did, but what it's doing to people who didn't do anything at all. Level 4. Fugitive. The decision doesn't feel like a decision when you're making it. It feels like the only thing left. You pack one bag. You leave your key on the counter instead of mailing it back like a person with a plan. You're on the interstate before sunrise, watching a welcome to sign roll past like it doesn't mean anything. It means everything. Crossing a state line specifically to stay ahead of a case has its own name under federal law, unlawful flight to avoid prosecution, and the moment that applies, the case stops belonging to one county. It belongs to a much wider net than the one you were trying to outrun. Somewhere around mile marker 220, a state trooper pulls onto the interstate 2 cars behind you and matches your speed for 11 miles without closing the gap. You take the next exit for no reason you could explain to anyone, circle back through a town you've never heard of, and get back on the highway 40 minutes later than you planned. He was probably never watching you at all. You don't get to know that for certain, and not knowing is its own kind of exhausting. Nobody puts your face on the news for this. There's no press conference. Your file just gets forwarded into a system built for exactly this situation. People who believe distance alone would make a local problem disappear. You feel it 2 days later at a gas station 400 miles from home. When your card gets declined for no reason the cashier can explain. It isn't the bank. It's a flag, quietly attached to your name, tripped by a purchase somewhere you weren't supposed to be yet. The county that used to be your whole problem is now just the smallest part of it. Level 5. Interstate Fugitive. Somewhere you'll never see, your name lands on a desk under fluorescent light, next to a keyboard, a legal pad, and a coffee that's already gone cold. This isn't one detective working a slow afternoon anymore. It's a task force, a name you've never heard, built specifically for cases that outgrew what a single department could handle alone. The file fills in fast. Your last known address, vehicles connected to you, former employers, relatives, old numbers, and one name that keeps showing up beside yours more than any other, Marcus. Nothing on any single page looks dramatic. That's what makes it work. Nobody's guessing wildly, they're narrowing. One address is a year stale. One belongs to someone who hasn't seen you since high school. One vehicle connection still looks live, so it gets circled twice. Before anyone gets near you, somebody else hears the knock. Your old roommate opens her door in socks to find 2 officers asking when she last spoke to you, whether you still drive the same car, whether you mentioned where you were headed. She doesn't know where you are. That was never really the point of the visit. 20 minutes later, the file downstairs looks slightly different than it did that morning, and she's standing in her own hallway with her heart still going too fast, wondering what she was supposed to say instead. She calls you that night, still shaken. For the first time, you understand what leaving actually did. It didn't erase your connections. It turned every one of them into a question somebody else could be asked. Level 6. Task Force Subject. For a while, you feel like you're winning. New city, cash job, a room paid for a week at a time. You've stopped using your real name for almost everything. Almost. Back in that office, nobody's staring at a single map waiting for a dot to appear. They're comparing small pieces, an old address next to a newer one, a name that surfaces twice, a record created months ago under your actual identity before you knew to be careful. None of it has to point straight at your door. It only has to stop pointing everywhere else. A local news brief runs your name under a photo you don't remember anyone taking. A tip line scrolls underneath it. Somewhere tonight, a stranger is deciding whether the person they saw at a gas station this afternoon was you. 2 weeks later, a highway camera catches your plate at an interchange 400 miles from where the story first ran. Nobody pulls you over. Nobody has to. The read just gets added to a list, One more data point sitting quietly next to everything already known, waiting for someone to notice the pattern instead of the moment. The story outruns the actual facts within a day. Someone at your old job tells someone else you were already caught last week. None of it's true. By the time it reaches you secondhand, 3 people already believe a version of your life that hasn't happened, and there's no way to correct all 3 at once. Underneath the clip online, strangers who have never met you are already certain of exactly what kind of person you are. A few of them are right about small things and wrong about everything that matters. You read 40 comments before you make yourself stop, and none of the 40 knew you existed a week ago. You read the silence around you as proof the distance is working. In that office, it's proof of something else entirely: how few places you could still be. Level 7. Wanted Fugitive. This is the level that never makes the news, because it doesn't look like anything from the outside. It just looks like a person getting smaller. You stop tagging locations without thinking about it first. You stop calling your sister as often, not because you don't want to hear her voice, but because you've started believing, fairly or not, that every call is one more thread leading back to you. You watch your own life from a distance now, the way you'd watch someone else's. Sunday dinners. Answering on the first ring. Both feel like things that happened to a different person. Your nephew turns 7 the same week, and you watch 4 seconds of a video your sister sends of him blowing out candles on a phone you're about to wipe and leave behind. And you don't write back for 3 days because you don't know how to explain why you weren't there without explaining everything else. At a diner counter 3 towns from wherever you're staying tonight, a stranger 2 stools down looks at you a beat longer than a stranger should. You leave cash on the counter and you're outside before your coffee's even cold, walking fast, telling yourself you're overreacting, not fully believing it. Marcus calls twice that week. You let both calls ring out, watching his name on the screen until it disappears, telling yourself it's caution. It's also the first friendship this has actually cost you. It won't be the last. Somewhere in that quiet, a thought arrives that scares you more than any patrol car has. You could keep doing this indefinitely, getting smaller, getting quieter, calling the distance safety for the rest of your life. That thought, not a knock on a door, is the real turning point. Level 8. Arrested. Which brings you back to the laundromat. 2:14 a.m. 9%. A patrol car that still hasn't moved. You watch it through the glass a moment longer, and this time you understand what you're actually looking at. It isn't a coincidence, and it isn't luck. Task forces don't kick a door in the second they think they've found someone they confirm first. A car matched, a tip that lined up, a pattern that finally stopped pointing anywhere else. That's what 6 minutes of an idling engine actually means. The sky behind the building is starting to go from black to the color of a bruise, that first gray before anything's really visible. Somewhere down the block, a dog barks twice and stops. Your own heartbeat is the loudest thing in the room. You've rehearsed this exact moment for weeks, always with some door you find at the last second that gets you out. There isn't one. There never was. The car door opens. Someone steps out, unhurried, already looking toward the building like he already knows which window is yours. A second shape moves along the far side of the lot, slower, staying out of the light. You could still run. You know the fire exit, the vending machine, the alley behind it. For about 4 seconds, you actually consider it, your hand already on the strap of the bag you never fully unpacked in 11 weeks. Instead, you're the one who opens the front door first, hands visible, before anyone has to knock. You say your name, your real one, the one you gave up using out loud, to a stranger, for the first time in 11 weeks. Your voice comes out steadier than you expect it to. There's no chase, no shouting, no sprint through a parking lot. Just a quiet exchange in a closed laundromat at dawn, and a version of you that decided, 1/2 second before it was decided for you, how this particular night was going to end. Back in the county you left 14 weeks ago, you finally sit in the courtroom you were supposed to walk into that Tuesday. The same kind of metal detector, the same kind of nicer clothes on everyone around you, and this time you're wearing them too. The original case is still there. So is the missed appearance. So, now, is the flight that turned a local problem into a federal one. Marcus never fully explains what he told them, or if he told them anything at all. You never fully ask. Some costs you just carry without itemizing them. Level 1 taught you that nothing has to happen loudly for everything to change. Every level after it taught you what silence actually costs, not just you, but everyone who stayed close enough to be asked a question on your behalf. The chase you spent 4 months bracing for never came. It didn't need to. It only needed to be patient longer than you could stay hidden. You think about that laundromat sometimes. The hum of that one dying light, the 6 minutes before anything happened. Somewhere in that stretch of time was the last version of you that still believed distance was the same thing as safety. It wasn't. It never was. It just took a closed laundromat at dawn to finally teach you the difference.